It's been a crazy few weeks. And just this morning, we woke up to the news of a magnitude 7.1 earthquake that hit Mexico, killing over 200. And this morning, a Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico as a Category 4. We had Irma, which devastated the Keys, and so many other places. It's overwhelming, isn't it? As Reformed Jews, we don't believe and we don't teach that crazy weather is a sign of God's anger, but it certainly feels like it right now. While these storms may not be God's punishment for our sins, our communal sins of pollution and contributing to global warming and the warming of our oceans has taken what would be natural phenomena and supersized them. They are stronger in frequency and in power. We've exploited our planet, and she's angry. Hayom Harat Olam, we will sing after the shofar blast. Today is the birthday of the world. Or a more accurate translation, today the earth is eternally pregnant. This line comes from the prophet Jeremiah, who says, Vatachi li imi kivri v'rachma harat olam. Let my mother be my grave, and her womb be eternally pregnant. The earth continuously births miracles and miraculous wonders. The earth is a mother to us, the giver of life, and it is our grave. As the classic mom quip goes, she brought us into this world, and she can take us out of it. I think we all felt that very acutely when we were preparing for Hurricane Irma, fearing that a Category 5 was going to devastate our precious community. I remember seeing the satellite images and thinking how terrifying and how beautiful. Our eternally pregnant mother gave birth to a storm that was the grave to many, and it could have been ours as well. Our Mother Earth, she deserves an apology. Rosh HaShanah has many names. One of them is Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment. Today we are judged. So how did we fare when it comes to how we treated the planet? During the next 10 days, we will examine our mistakes and take responsibility for our part in all of our broken relationships. We will give and ask for forgiveness. We call this making teshuvah. A crucial part of the teshuvah process is resolving to change our ways and coming up with a plan for if we're put in the same situation so we won't make the same mistakes. But it all starts with an apology. Well, the earth deserves an apology today. Al chet shachatanu lefanacha, for the sins we've committed against you by polluting the air, earth, and water. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha, for the sins we've committed against you by relying on fossil fuels. Just after midnight on September 11th, Eugenio Pereira awoke to the sound of tropical force winds slamming on his Gainesville home. Hurricane Irma had arrived. At 1:45 a.m., the power flickered and went out. But unlike large swaths of Florida that were facing days, if not weeks, without electricity, Pereira knew he would have power when the sun rose. He had installed rooftop solar panels just 2 weeks before the storm, along with an inverter that allows him to use power from the solar panels without being connected to the grid. So in the morning, he plugged an extension cord into the inverter, flipped it on, and voila, he had power. He was able to use his appliances, none of his groceries went bad, and he could do his work as an IT while the neighborhood waited for the grid to come back on. Hurricane Irma cut power to 6.7 million Floridians. I just got mine back around 4:30 in the afternoon on Monday. Rabbi Barris just got his last night. At one point, Rabbi Siegel from Judea, Rabbi Kula from Bet Shirah, Rabbi Aklepi, Cantor Nelson, Rabbi Barris, and myself, we all didn't have power. Rabbi Barris joked, Florida's clergy are powerless, but what else is new? So what is new is that unlike past storms, there are more and more people and businesses who knew how to go off-grid, even cities. Coral Springs used solar-powered traffic lights while the grid was down. Now, as our state rebuilds thousands of miles of damaged power infrastructure, is the perfect time for us to rethink grid resilience and bring in renewable energy. As we will pray tomorrow morning, Or Olam Ba'otzer Chaim, infinite light is preserved in life's treasure house. The sun provides clean, renewable energy from a fuel source that requires no locating, no excavation, no transportation, and no combustion. While in use, solar panels create absolutely no waste or emissions. Unlike fossil fuel and power plants, they're simple, cheap, clean, and better. The idea of going solar was once fringe, but last year we voted to pass an amendment that extends tax breaks for residents who installed solar panels. And we rejected a utility-backed solar amendment that would have raised fees and kept out companies who wanted to sell solar. In recent months, solar co-ops have allowed communities to buy solar together to save money. They've taken this popular form of rooftop solar and joined together to make it achievable for the whole community. There are now 9 in our state. If you want to learn more about them, you can join me for a Shabbat meal during Hanukkah as we celebrate the one cruise of oil lasting 8 days and learn about how we too can make our energy spread in miraculous ways. We have tasted these past 2 weeks a little bit of what it will be like if we continue down this non-sustainable path of overworking our overburdened power grid. And the lack of air conditioning and internet is not fun, nor is it safe. Let this be a moment of motivation for us all, for the sin of not living up to our potential, for relying on old methods that are destructive instead of constructive, for putting convenience over conscience, for polluting our air and water in a way that supersizes our storms and threatens all life. For all these sins and more, O God of pardon, pardon us, forgive us, grant us atonement. For the sins we've committed against you by believing our actions only affect ourselves. How many of you left Miami in preparation for the storm? Oh, there's a lot of faithfuls here. Rabbi Aklepi joked on Friday night that the storm was coming to Miami, so she went to Tampa. Then the storm shifted and it was coming to Tampa, so she went to Orlando. And there the storm caught up with her. My Facebook feed was filled with pictures of you, my congregants, in cars headed either upstate or out of state, some making it all the way to Canada. I know. We just got a taste of being environmental migrants, people forced to move because of environmental change. The first set of environmental migrants you've heard of, it was Noah and his family on the Arky. But this is no longer a biblical tale. All over our warming world, people are on the move. In the Middle East and North Africa, the movement is largely due to drought. In Asia, floods. According to Foresight, a UK government research body, By 2060, there could be as many as 1 billion environmental migrants, with an additional 192 million people living in vulnerable urban coastal floodplains. Now, according to Breshit Rabbah, Noah spent 120 years trying to convince the people of his generation to change their ways. And he was unsuccessful. We don't have that long. We need to shift to more sustainable life cycles, waste less, pollute less, and think broader about how our individual actions affect the globe. Now, I'm often reminded that it is true that maybe one person's individual efforts of reducing their carbon footprint can't save the planet. But if we all work together, we can make a difference. And it's important to remember that our efforts, no matter how small in scale, do affect the larger whole. We're all in this together. The point is captured beautifully in a story in Vayikra Rabbah, where there are men on a ship, and one of the men begins to bore a hole in the ship beneath his seat. And they ask, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Mind your own business. This is my seat. I can do whatever I want." And they continue, "No, we care because the water will come up and flood the ship for us all. We can no longer afford to pretend that what we do as individuals, as companies, as nations, does not affect others. We're being ignorant and indifferent to the impact of our actions on others. We're turning a blind eye to environmental migrants. For all these sins, O God of pardon, pardon us, forgive us, grant us atonement. Al chet shachatanu lefanacha, for the sin we committed against you by not taking care of our precious trees." I saw a funny post on Facebook just a few days ago. There was a bunch of trees in a pile on the curbside. You may have driven past many of those on your way here. But unlike those piles, there was a sign next to this one that said, "Free trees, some assembly required." Now, while we are all relieved that the storm did not wreak the kind of destruction that was predicted, it's sad to drive past all of these downed trees. And some of us lost trees that are special to us, trees planted in honor of a loved one, trees that gave us fruit for pies and dip, trees that our children climbed in. And we regret their loss, as we should. Trees produce the air we breathe. They absorb carbon dioxide. Their roots prevent soil erosion and absorb and filter water. Trees produce needed shade and humidity, along with fruit. They provide home for animals, bugs, flora, and fauna. In economic terms, 1 in 4 people on the globe depend directly on forests for their livelihoods. More than 120 prescription drugs derive directly from plants found in forests, including some that I take. And despite all this, the world has lost nearly half its forests to agriculture, development, or resource extraction in just this past century. Perhaps the most definitive verse in Torah on the prohibition against cutting down trees is found in Deuteronomy. It says, when you wage war against a city and you want to besiege it for a long time in order to capture it, you must not destroy its fruit trees, wielding an axe against them. You may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. Are the trees of the city human, that they may flee before you? Maimonides expands this teaching that this law does not apply only to fruit trees, and not only to trees, but whoever breaks vessels, rips up garments, destroys a building, stops up a fountain, or ruins food, is guilty of violating the prohibition of Bal Tashchit, do not destroy. when we learn that a patch of forest about the size of my home state of Indiana is lost every year on our planet because of clear cutting and agriculture. It can shock us and it can touch us, but we usually end up forgetting about it because it seems so removed and far away. So think about the trees that you lost. Think about those trees you loved, and perhaps it will help us remember to take care of those millions of trees that we continuously lose. It's up to us to use reclaimed wood, to upcycle, recycle, eat less meat, and most of all, to plant. As Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said in Avot Rabbi Natan, if you have a sapling in your hand and they announce that the Messiah has arrived, plant the sapling and then go and greet the Messiah. We cannot rely on heavenly messengers to do this work for us. It's our turn. For the sin we committed against you by clear-cutting forests, by failing to recycle, reuse, replant, and repair. For all these sins, O God of pardon, pardon us, forgive us, grant us atonement. The Midrash teaches that 5,778 years ago, on this day, God took the first human beings and guided them around the Garden of Eden, saying, look at my creations. See how beautiful and how perfect they are. I created everything for you. Make sure you don't ruin or destroy my world. If you do, there will be no one after you to fix it. The father of modern Orthodoxy, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, read Genesis 1, where it says, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and ask the question we all do, who is us? Who is God talking to? And he answers that God is talking to earth and talking to the rest of creation, because man would develop the ability to put every other creation in danger. And so they were consulted whether or not we should be put here on earth. The earth agreed, but only on the condition that we would not put nature at risk. Hirsch continues, however, when we destroy and when we ruin, at that moment, you have no right to the things around you. As soon as you use them unwisely, be it the greatest or the smallest, you commit treachery against my world. You commit murder and robbery against my property. You sin against me. This makes the commands we find one chapter later very clear. Man was set in the Garden of Eden, le'ovda u'leshomra. Le'ovda literally meaning to serve it. Man is not just a master, but a servant of the earth. And the second, l'shomra, means to guard it. We must protect her with vigilance. And when any damage is done, we are liable for the loss. So here we are, celebrating 5,778 anniversaries from our creation. We were created to take care of our planet, and we have sinned. We've exploited and wasted and put ourselves above creation instead of holding ourselves responsible for creation. For the sins we've committed against you and against ourselves when we fail to serve and guard our eternally pregnant Mother Earth. O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. This year, our social justice theme is environmental justice. All of the other mitzvah work we do, we still hold to be very important, and we're still doing it, including the food drive, which begins this evening. We hope you'll bring in food between Rosh HaShanah and Yom Kippur. Our rock and run, which we'll have on Sukkot, everything but the turkey, and so on. But we would be remiss if we ignored our responsibility to our planet. Every holiday, you'll have a chance to do something that will serve Mother Earth. We'll clean up parks, We will visit recycling centers and the Everglades. We'll plant trees, learn about solar communes, local eating, and how we can guard, keep, and serve our wondrous Mother Earth. We, here in Miami, we have caught a glimpse of what it feels like to feel the Earth's wrath. We are ground zero, and we stand affected. Hayom Harat Olam, today is the birthday of the world, or more accurately, the world is eternally pregnant. May she give birth to abundant life in the year to come. May God grant us the wisdom and courage to heal, to watch over this garden of life, to make it thrive under the heavens. May we guard her and serve her so we again feel served and protected by her. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Lashana Tova.